Hello, I'm Betty Casey, editor of Tulsa Kids Magazine, and we partnered with St. Francis Children's Hospital to bring you important health information for your family. You can find all the interviews on our website and in the magazine. Just look for PJ's Corner. Today, we're talking to Dr. Andre Fallot, director of St. Francis Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, about a very important topic, vaping. Hello, Dr. Fallot. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Betty. Thanks for having me.
Let's just start with how this is e-cigarette use, right? Vaping is the use of e-cigarettes. How popular is e-cigarette use among teens?
More popular than we might think. It turns out in just the state of Oklahoma, about 20% of high school students are using some form of e-cigarettes or vaping. And it's actually more than double the national average.
More than double the national average in Oklahoma.
Correct.
Surprising. So what are the health risks associated with vaping, and especially what are you seeing in your practice, and is that damage reversible?
Well, thankfully, most kids don't make it to me because you have to be pretty sick to be in the intensive care unit. But those that do are unfortunately kids who already typically have something underlying like asthma and decide for whatever reason, whether it be peer pressure or trying to fit in, to try vaping and wind up having a horrible asthma exacerbation, even to the point we've had a few children who have to be intubated and placed on a breathing machine for a few days. Thankfully, most kids wind up getting what maybe looks like a pneumonia on an X-ray, a fair bit of coughing, but not typically leading to the point needing hospitalization, although there are certainly reports across the nation of kids who've developed vaping-associated lung injury or valley, where you get really bad lung disease pretty quickly. Not sure, and nobody is really, in terms of what it is about those children and exactly which chemicals in vaping, but we do know that especially those vape pens that have THC in them usually also have vitamin E, and that's been linked to developing pretty severe lung disease pretty quickly. But for your broader question, more importantly, we do know that long-term use of vaping leads from young adults into adults to have much higher likelihood, at least 3 times typical average, of developing bad asthma or over time something even worse called bronchiolitis obliterans. If you think of a bad emphysema in somebody who's been smoking a long time. And then even the double risk, because you have nicotine in most e-cigarettes and vape pens, you wind up having an addictive cycle where folks can't stop and or combine it with or graduate to smoking and actual cigarettes, which have even more carcinogens.
So that brings up my next question. Is vaping addictive? And do you feel that these kids are thinking that because it's not smoking, it's less dangerous, or that it's not dangerous?
Absolutely, yeah. So first part of that, yes, definitely addictive. It has nicotine, enough nicotine that even other health effects that aren't talked about. Little kids that find a little vial of vape fluid accidentally drink it sometimes, and that's enough nicotine when ingested to be fatal. And there have been some case reports across the country of that. But overall, it is typically touted as being safer than smoking cigarettes and not as addictive. It is fairly easy to hide because they're small devices and don't have the obvious smoke, visible smoke that cigarettes have. So it's a little bit easier to be casual about it. And a lot of folks think, oh, because they're flavored, many of them are, that they can't be bad for you. While yes, there are a little bit less of the components that are in cigarettes, there are still some pretty ugly chemicals in it. You have formaldehyde, which can be a carcinogen. The chemicals that lead to the flavoring, when you have like a fruity smell, anything like that, the diacetyl that's in it can lead to really bad long-term lung effects that are not reversible over time once you get them. So the more, and it's kind of a dose response sort of thing, where the more you do and the longer you do it, the less reversible it is.
Okay, so when you look at these risks, and it sounds like there could be long-term multiple risks to vaping. What would you want parents to know about vaping, and maybe how they can what they can tell their kids?
Uh, First and foremost, would say that if your child is not vaping, they certainly know people that are. Again, it's at least 20% of high school students in the state are doing it. But if you suspect that your child could be, or things to look out for, um, a little difficult because we're talking about teenagers. So when you talk about mood swings, you say, okay, what does that mean? But the increased irritability from baseline, um, different changing sleep cycles, often because of the nicotine, smelling funny, fruity smells in the room or hallway where the child's room is, are all potential signs that your child could be vaping. But generally, just having an open discussion and not anything that's yelling or accusatory, to be able to say, hey, what do you know about vaping, and what uh, any of your friends doing it? We know that there's a fair bit of peer pressure that friends can exert to try have you fit in or be cool, as it can be seen. Um, are ways at least to open up the discussion overall, rather than um, anything that winds up shutting doors, screaming at them or throwing everything out immediately. And of course, if you find anything, confiscate it. But the uh, every family is different in their approach, but would definitely try to make it more an open and informational discussion. And that, yes, even though it seems as though it is safer than smoking, we know for sure that there are long-term health effects, and we do know that they are addictive as well, and that many kids have trouble stopping on their own, just like adults, and need some assistance. And there are some programs out there for that, whether it be going to your family medicine provider or your pediatric provider, to be able to get resources. There are some online. There's a Smoke Free Teen is a website and resource where kids can be texted all the time to be able to get reminders, and have them check in to be able to make sure that they haven't resorted to doing it that day. Um, and there are certainly other counseling services as well as medications that have been shown to be helpful to wind up reducing and eventually quitting nicotine use.
Okay, so starting with their pediatrician, perhaps, or going to one of these resources, and we'll definitely include those online as we write this. So, why is it? I'm curious. Why do you have any reason that there's so much more vaping in Oklahoma? Why are we higher than the national average?
It's available pretty much anywhere, even though it's under 21. You're not allowed to sell it to anyone under 21. Typically, it's seems to be fairly easily available, and there's lots of smoke shops here in Tulsa, and it's a densely populated city where there are lots of shops, as opposed to a much more rural outlying area where you may have less access to that sort of thing. It also doesn't help. There's a popular show that just concluded called The Lowdown that you may be familiar with. Right here in Tulsa, half the main characters are vaping constantly on it. So that doesn't add to the storyline. Yeah, it shows that you're jittery and anxious, and yeah, and Ethan Hawke's an amazing actor, and it's a great show. But it's like, come on, guys, you don't need to be doing that.
Yeah, I doubt that Ethan Hawke is a vapor, but yeah.
Right. His character sure is.
Well, I do think your point that in popular culture and in TV shows, movies, things that kids are watching, I think they see those images, and that has an effect.
Sure, it's an interesting reset from when you think about 50s, 60s, where there's smoking in every scene. And now that that's all been banned and there's a whole new cycle of, oh, I have these e-cigarettes, there's no regulation. It's wide open. And so it's kind of a new reset back to that time period. So it's a little bit of a struggle.
That is interesting. And the different flavors people can
Sure,
get is be marketed toward teens, which
exactly.
which brings me to my next question. You mentioned the availability of e-cigarettes in our community. Are there things that lawmakers or maybe the community could do, in your opinion, that could maybe decrease vaping in teens?
I think just increasing overall awareness, whether it be in schools, um, maybe some mandatory signage in stores, just like there's mandatory labeling on cigarettes in terms of the carcinogenic effects, but ensuring that folks are very aware that both the addictive properties and the negative health effects on the lungs and the heart over time that vaping can have is important. But aside from that, yeah, it's pervasive enough that I think it would be a difficult task to just get everybody to stop right away.
Well, I do think getting this type of information out to parents is the first step, or a step that we can do. I really had no idea that it was so pervasive, and I think a lot of people may be surprised at that and should probably watch for their teens, because teens are very susceptible to peer pressure. All right, I had one more question. Are teens more susceptible physically, mentally to e-cigarettes, to vaping, to the effect?
I don't know that there is a increased susceptibility, but the way I think of it is that what you breathe in is one of the very few things that you don't have a whole lot of control over in terms of the air quality and everything else. But you do have control on things like vaping or cigarette smoking, so that the sooner you start, unfortunately, the longer of a runway of damage that you have. Uh, and you have to live, you only get one body. So if you start sooner and create some irreversible effects, then that's something you have to live with a lot longer. So I would encourage everybody to think twice and to recognize that they have to protect themselves, and by directly inhaling harmful chemicals, there are probably better things you can do with your time and the ways to relieve stress. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think that's really good information, and I feel like this is something parents may not know, and letting people know about the dangers, I think, is really important. So thank you for talking with us today, Dr. Fallot. Sorry.
No worries.
I'm sorry.
I get called much worse. So thanks for having me. That's great.
I appreciate you being here, and you can find this information and more like it at PJ's Corner at tulsakids.com. And thanks again for the information.
Of course. Take care.